us about the movie?
Sure.
What it's about? How did you improve from the first episode?
Okay. Well, the basic concept of the movie is that, you know, the first film was really a disaster movie about what was going to hit you on the head. So we wanted to kind of do a different genre for this film. So we decided to kind of pick up the idea of a monster movie and run with that. So our movie literally starts like what, 60 seconds after the last movie ends, with Flint kind of celebrating his victory over the Flidismatifer on a giant pile of leftovers with his friends and families, and he's like, everything's going to be great. All of a sudden, a helicopter drops from the sky, and we meet one of our new characters, one of the greatest inventors of all time, one of Flint's heroes, this guy named Chester V, and he's come to clean up the island. The only catch is everybody's got to leave. So that kind of sets up our story where, like, Flint kind of graduates. So he kind of goes to high school, ends up in a place where like everybody's wearing a lab coat, and he's like not the weird kid anymore. And we sort of set up a new story for him, in that he's got to figure out how to hang on to his friends as he's maturing and becoming, you know, professional, becoming something new.
And still, you know, like staying true to himself. Yeah.
And while that's going on, we got giant killer food roaming the island.
So how did you make the main character Flint evolve? What's new with it?
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of answered it at the end of that last question.
Well, it's
so
like, it's like the idea, like he was the only guy in his hometown with a lab coat who was into science.
He didn't have any friends. You know, nobody liked him. He didn't have a girlfriend.
And now he's going to a place where everybody's wearing a lab coat, and being a scientist isn't weird. In fact, it kind of makes him popular. And so he's like trying to figure out how to be friends with his kind of his hometown gang, you know, at the same time as he's trying to be cool. He's trying to kind of keep up with like these new guys, like the varsity football team, you know, which is like Chester V in his lab coat, or his orange vest. Like Flint's trying to be something that he's not.
Right.
So.
And how did you make the design evolve from a disaster movie to a monster movie?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we talked about food creatures, and there were ideas that we had in the first film that we wanted to continue into this one that we didn't really get a chance to realize on the first film. And so, you know, we had talked about pickles and strawberries, so we started with some produce, like kind of sculpting produce and taking pictures of that. And then our character designer, Craig Kelman, came up with like maybe 80 or 100 different food-animal combinations. And so, you know, we kind of, you know, also with the island looked at like what would happen if this island was overgrown, and kind of what would grow out of, you know, the magic of the Flidismatifer.
And the first film was really horizontal. Like if you remember, like our town was very low to the ground, and we had a lot of sky, so we had stuff falling from the sky. So the landscape was horizontal and the action was vertical. In this film, we've got this jungle that kind of grows up and fills the sky. So we've got like a very vertical kind of world with the creatures being the MacGuffin. So these things in the woods, like coming out of the bushes as opposed to falling on your head. So that was a design choice that kind of permeated our design language. Yeah.
How do you make a movie for kids who is also good for adults?
Well, I mean, we're kind of big kids ourselves, and so we make stuff that would entertain us, and hopefully kids and adults will like it as well.
It's the studio hiring man babies to make movies. Man babies.
But you know, I think it helps the fact that we both grew up loving animation and you know really loving that kind of medium and getting into that.
Yeah.
So.
And no, we live in the world, so we pay attention to what's going on, and so like we try to bring in some contemporary ideas to our story, but it's like being able to be fantastic is really what gets us excited about filmmaking. You know, it's
that's interesting. Can you talk about your career? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your career path and choices? How do you get to direct an animation movie?
Oh, right.
Yeah, I mean, really, both of us started in the story department drawing storyboards, and part of pitching your sequence to executives and other story artists and getting feedback and doing performance really helps in kind of understanding how actors feel when they're delivering lines, and also working with writers. It's like we get to kind of cover all the bases.
Dealing with change, notes, and absorbing like sort of the trials and errors of filmmaking, like being able to bounce back when something doesn't work and come up with another idea.
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, it was about 15 years of storyboarding.
Yeah.
I know you did some animation before boarding, but it comes from almost 20 years of doing animation.
Right. And even going farther back, like your grandfather.
Yeah, my grandfather was was a Disney animator from 1935 to 1970. So I grew up watching him draw and understood animation like from a very early age, and always really loved you know, what it could do and what it could bring to audiences. So.
And I grew up on a farm in Canada, and I was no good at hockey, so I had to do something to stop getting beat up, so I became the art kid, you know? And it's like being able to communicate with drawings is something that I think from a very young age I was always really excited about. And
right.
it was a very natural career path, and I was just lucky that you can make a living doing it.
Yeah.
Also, you get to direct great actors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great comedians. Yeah.
How did you work with them?
Well, I mean, we'd both be in the room with the actor, so a lot of times Chris would describe the scene to the actor, and I'd be at a music stand reading lines opposite the actor. Yeah. And then, you know, just as we would be working with the actor, each one of us would throw out different ideas, and sometimes our actors, you know, people like Bill Hader and Will Forte, had ideas that they would contribute as well, and so we just kind of work it as we were recording.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like a workshopping kind of writer's room. Like all of our different departments are all about improving the idea. So when we get with our actors, it's like they own the characters. So the ability to kind of give them the freedom to hopefully, you know, play with the material. You know what I mean? And we just like that sandbox where it's like, you know, we can kind of beat ideas back and forth.
Right.
Okay, one last question.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Did you develop or use new animation techniques in this movie? What's new on the technical part?
Yeah. Well, with the jungle, there was something called the depth styling, where they came up with a technology whereas things go into the background, they actually flatten out and become more of a painting. So it also helps with render time because it's less zeros and ones that they have to do to render. So as the camera would pull back, you know, things would flatten. As you move forward, they come back out into 3D.
And it gave us a painting, right?
Yeah.
It makes it. Yeah. The other thing is we came up with a new system for crowds, so we were able to kind of make many different characters out of a few characters. So that and in CG that's always been a problem. Like, you know, you see a lot of repeated characters in our crowds in the first movie, and the second movie we were able to kind of create a whole. We designed 8 males, 8 females, and we crossed between them. And in the morphing, we found thousands of characters. So that was really exciting. Yeah.